Welcome to the AI Summit. I'm your host, Julia Nimchinsky, joined by my co-host, Justin Michael, and we're deeply grateful to all our amazing speakers, analysts, and sponsors who have played a crucial role in making this summit possible. There are too many to mention, so please check out their tech and LinkedIn profiles on the side of the screen, and we'll kick off the first day and the first panel with one and only Scott Brinker, who needs no introduction. Scott, how have you been?
I've been great. Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. What's on your mind? What's in the AI land for Dimension?
Oh man, what isn't in AI land for pretty much every facet of marketing at this point? But actually, this is the wonderful thing about this session is I actually get to sit back and not be the expert answering that. But you have assembled an absolutely superstar panel of folks from across the industry who are going to weigh in and give us their perspective.
Amazing.
All right.
Kick us off.
Sounds good. Okay, so we've got a lot of superstars on this panel. So I think just really quickly want to go ahead and give folks just a chance to give a 10-second introduction. Scott Brinker, the editor of Chief MarTech and the VP of Platform Ecosystem at HubSpot. And then I'm going to start tagging folks here who can also give us their quick 10-second version. So let me start with Sangram.
All right, Sangram, CEO of Go-to-Market Partners. I think that should do it to make sure we don't waste any more time.
Well done. All right. Helen.
Hi, Helen Finucci, founder and CEO of PipelinePower.ai, helping B2B companies drive revenue and build pipeline.
Sweet. Tim.
Tim Sanders, Vice President, Research Insights at G2 and fellow at the Digital Data Design Institute at Harvard.
Nice. John, the man, the myth, the legend.
I don't know about that, but hi, everyone. So yeah, I call myself these days a MarTech entrepreneur, co-founder of Marketo, co-founder of Engagio, and currently working on a new stealth MarTech startup.
Excellent, excellent. Anastasia.
Hello, I'm Anastasia Pavlova. I'm founder and CEO of Bold GTM and currently CMO at Cortelligent. Lots of familiar faces there. I used to work with John Miller at Marketo, and Sangram and I collaborated on so many ventures since then. And of course, Scott, again, remember you from Marketo days. So awesome to be here.
Nice, nice. Venk.
How you doing, guys? Hi, everybody. I'm Venk Chandran, the Chief Product Officer of PathFactory. PathFactory is a marketing AI company. We've been around for a couple of years and excited to share some on-the-ground stuff around AI and machine learning that's happening out there. I hope this is the right conference for it. Am I on the right webinar?
No, I actually thought this was like the door-to-door marketing event. All right,
That's
yeah.
what I thought.
Oh, and a fellow Scott Kim.
I'm the other Scott. I'm Scott Kim, CEO of Rocket Reach. We've been around since 2015, and we offer a contact database service.
And Ramya. Is Ramya here?
Hey, Ramya Kumar Swamy. I lead demand and growth at TaskUs. Excited to be here. A lot of familiar faces.
And then last but definitely not least, Evan.
Hi, everyone. Evan Liang, co-founder and CEO at Lean Data. We help companies really manage the handoff between sales and marketing through a process called revenue orchestration. Excited to be here with a lot of familiar faces as we kind of see this next evolution in kind of demand gen.
Okay, fantastic. Well, we have a grand total of about 52 minutes left. Dividing this, we each get a grand total of 30 seconds to weigh in. Okay, I'm going to kick things off by tagging a couple of folks here for some questions. But again, as we let this evolve a little bit organically, please feel free to jump in. If you have a perspective, make it snappy, and forgive me in advance if I start randomly cutting people off. So with that, everyone's talking about AI as this revolution, right? This new inflection point in marketing and MarTech. But we certainly have the benefit of looking back and seeing other revolutions like this from the early days of marketing automation, from the early days of account-based marketing. And we have a couple of the folks here who actually led those revolutions. So actually, Sangram and John, I'm hoping I might be able to start off with each of you as to like, is this a revolution like the revolutions you've seen in the past? And what's different about it? John.
Yeah, I guess I would, to me, marketing automation was a business practice in the technology category. AI is a technology enabler. So I think in many ways, a better analogy is not like marketing automation, but just the arrival of SaaS, right? And software as a service unlocked a whole new category of new ways to solve business problems. I think we're going to see the same thing with AI, right? Where it's not necessarily new business problems, it's new ways of solving the business problems. So I'll keep it short with that, but we can expand on that.
Yeah. Well, John, you and I've gone with Pardot, Marketo, and then Engagio, Terminus, and so we have seen a lot of these movies a little bit. Where I find what I find fascinating about AI is the ability to do whatever it is that you want to do in a much more efficient, faster way. Like that's literally, if I have to use a word for AI, is like the word do. And that's the most simplistic way. Every single thing around AI, the companies that want to start doing, well, we do AI. Well, every company is going to do AI. It will be like, well, every company has a website. Every company has it's not a new thing. It should be part of every single product and service. But the most underlying theme for me, what I'm seeing through all the research that we're doing through go-to-market partners, is that companies that are effectively using AI to augment their customer experience, their marketing, their go-to-market functions, like they are the one who are actually finding the most value, not necessarily starting a net new company that just does only AI stuff.
Very cool.
If I could add to that too, I just want to add one thing if I could, because a lot of the research on AI, it's so interesting. We think it's fancier than it is. I mean, AI is just a prediction machine. Takes what we have informationally, produces net new information. I think what's revolutionary for marketing is that AI has decoupled prediction from judgment for the first time. And that used to live in an expert who's very expensive, expiring, contracts on their rules of thumb. But now the machine makes the prediction. And in marketing, we're looking for Rick Rubins, not people with 30 years experience doing Photoshop editing. We're looking for people with good judgment. And what that does is unlock the talent base, just like Uber and ride sharing unlocked the potential driver talent base by disconnecting prediction from judgment with Waze. So I think, to me, that's what's the most interesting thing, whether we're talking machine learning or talking natural language processing.
Okay. Well, listen, I know folks wanted this to be a very pragmatic session of not, what the future of AI will be, but what's actually happening now with AI in demand gen. And I'm wondering if, to set this up, one of you, as demand gen experts, break it down for me. What are the components that go into demand gen? Because I think we're going to want to take each one of those and talk a little bit about what's actually practical with AI today. So who wants to give me the overview? What's under the umbrella of demand gen?
Well, I can go. Yes, I can go. So it all starts with a strategy and planning, right? And of course, AI can help with ideation and kind of look to make suggestions around the different concepts. Then we go into content development. Let's say, well, audience breakdown. You need to identify your audience and segmentation. Right. So again, I think depending on what platforms you use, some of that is automated. 6 Sense, for example, demand-based to a certain degree. If you're doing it manually, then with HubSpot or Pardot, I mean, it's kind of painful, but again, you can stitch things together. Then we go to, audience insights, right? So a lot of research. I think that's where AI can really help tremendously with, ChatGPT, Perplexity, and, a slew of other tools there. Then we go into content development and messaging. Again, very much this can be assisted with AI. Again, personalization, I think, is the biggest opportunity, is what we can do with ChatGPT and other tools. And there's a plethora of tools like Writer and Jasper, and I think that's the biggest breakthrough for many marketers. In terms of campaign development and automation and running campaigns on different channels, I think that's where the greatest opportunities are, and we can spend hours and hours on that. I think that's a very interesting area to dive into. Then we have optimization and kind of measurement and optimization reporting. So again, there's a plethora of tools there, and lots of opportunities.
Okay.
So it would be nice to break down each of these pieces and kind of dive individually and see what's really working and not working.
Ramya, do you want to jump in?
At TaskUs, right? I think one of the ways we're looking at this is, we're it's a lean company, we're at a phase in our life cycle where speed and pace, I'm sure it's not unlike others, but that's kind of our biggest need of the hour, right? How do we kind of contract the time between each of the handoffs? How do we make the handoffs work harder? I know Sangram is like the evangelist of this, right? In terms of it being a team sport, like how do we use AI to drive intelligence end to end across all of our go-to-market teams is a big way where we look at these use cases. So we're not really looking at it from a where do we what buttons do we turn on? But it's more like when we look at our entire process chain and where are we seeing the bottlenecks in terms of how can we unlock that speed so that we're not, ending in cycles of like budget and resources to outcomes that we're trying to deliver, and instead using this as an unlocker of those bottlenecks has worked really well for us. So when we look at our readiness sheet, right, for our entire process tool stack, and we say what is functioning well, what's not, and where can we use AI to like win in the small term, build pace and momentum within the teams, and then continue to iterate on it to make those outcomes work harder for us. It helps us build buy-in from our business stakeholders, right? When they see these wins coming through, everyone works harder and faster because of those insights that we're driving end to end. So those are the ways that we're using to evaluate where we want to turn it on and where we want to invest the time and effort.
Okay, well, let's take this breakdown that Anastasia gave us here and like go deep on each of these for a minute of like tools that you are actually using today for each one of those stages. And the first one there, just being around like the strategy and the planning. Who's using AI in that process as like a co-collaborator on your strategy? What tools are you using? What are you doing with it?
Maybe, Scott, before we answer that, I mean, there was a point I wanted to make that sort of maybe sets a little framing of the tools, which is this thing's called Amara's Law, which basically says that we tend to kind of overestimate the hype of technologies in the short term and underestimate what their actual impact will be in the long run. Mm-hmm. So I think, here where we are today, sort of just, the end of Q3 2024, I think we're kind of at the peak of hype around Gen AI, which is using the tools to kind of create content, if you will. And we have yet to sort of enter in, to the next phase where AI is going to actually start to really have a much more meaningful impact. So my hunch is, as we start talking about tools, what we're going to find is that people are using them for like the simple tactical use cases. create some content, summarize this blog post into a LinkedIn article, suggest a subject line for this email, maybe create some images, and then maybe we're using, GPTs as a brainstorming partner, in some cases. But I think, and part of the reason I'm working on a new company is that we have yet to see the emergence of the tools that are going to truly transform demand gen with AI. I don't know if they exist yet. So that, I don't know, if other people can prove me wrong, that would be awesome.
I mean,
So
I don't know,
if
John.
I could
I think you're right.
If I could jump in. So I think AI is being overused for demand gen in the fact that we're all receiving lots of emails and LinkedIn, and with a lot of the BDRs being basically fired or laid off, the full cycle reps have to do their own demand gen. So I come from empowering sales leaders. I'm a sales leader, and demand gen in the enterprise has to be done by the sellers. And for effect, I think that the tools that work down market aren't effective. So I call it account-based selling. And the most effective tool is a parallel assisted dialer like Connect and Sell. And the reps call, they find out who is on the buying committee. And the way that AI is being used for huge leverage is through conversational intelligence, but not conversational intelligence traditionally thought of, where one conversation is analyzed on a deal by deal basis. Let's say you have your reps doing 30 conversations a day. You have 10 reps, that's 1,500 conversations a week. And if you're doing a summary of those cold call conversations, it takes you a minute to listen to a 1.1 minute, 8-second call. There's no leverage. But if you collectively use them together, put them into ChatGPT or an AI model, a sales manager can coach to what's working and not working, and you get huge leverage there. And you can look at trending over time. And so that is one way where AI is required. It's not just a productivity enhancer, but it's required to be able to analyze all that data. So I think at the top of the funnel in enterprise selling, which is where, I got tired of reps telling me, oh, those leads are bad. Do your own leads, get your own demand. There's no excuse for you not having a full funnel. And that's how I manage. And AI has been hugely impactful. So that's what I would have to offer.
Oh man. All right. It's 15 minutes into this panel. I've already completely lost control of it. But Helen, where you're going with this is fantastic. So let's jump there for a moment. There's sort of two things there. One is this using of AI to be able to analyze sales conversations at scale, be able to do that for everything from coaching of individual reps to also being able to identify certain themes, trends. I'm curious, just what tools are you using for that? Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, so I create a team coaching bot using ChatGPT, and you can take it either through people who are really expert at it and compare your sellers against the expert standard, or you could do it quick and dirty and just take your own team and see what is resonating, and then a manager needs to listen to a few of their reps' calls. So is a rep failing at the opener, objection handling, closing, asking for the meeting? A cold call is a 1 minute and 8 seconds on average performance. And so you need to practice and you need to be coached and you can see trending. So I use ChatGPT, Connect and Sell is the parallel assisted dialer. So that is using AI to navigate, corporate phone systems. And I think it's the only way that you can really break through. The thing that's so astonishing is you get the undivided attention of the person you're speaking to for a minute and you learn. And so one of the things that sales' job is to author to capture feedback from the market being a list of companies you want to sell to or a list of individuals within those companies, to see if your message is working, the seller's effective, et cetera. So I use ChatGPT. You can do regression analysis on ChatGPT. and find out what part of the different elements of skills is leading to the outcome, which is a discovery meeting. You can use ChatGPT to look at and other AI tools to look at attribution. And by the way, even if you quote unquote fail, but you don't get a meeting, those people you talk to come to your website, and you can see who's come to your website using AI. Also, the other thing too is that there's really no substitute for human-to-human connection in B2B sales. And so an email following a cold call, thank you for our conversation, will be open. It's a way to start building a relationship, put in follow-on calls, etc.
Yeah, so let me tag on that and bring some other folks into this as well too. I'm curious, just from a raise of hands, like how many of you either are or working with clients who are doing similar sort of like analysis of those conversations. But I do want to ask a question here, because there's been a whole wave of agent SDRs, BDRs, like 11X, Artisan. All right, someone else from the panel here, like, has anyone like experimented with these? Is this viable? Bank?
Yeah, thanks. First, just on this, for this conversation, I'll say that, 100% of our Path Factory customers use AI and have been for like over 5 years. This is not new technology, but I will say this. I think we're pulling our punches here. I'm not. I think this is going to be very disruptive to the idea of go-to-market, demand gen, and everything that you used to know. You may throw it out the window in the next 5 years. I'm being straight up as a technologist who's seeing this with my customers, and the reason is my customers are asking me to move the needle. And let's just talk about agents, for example. There's two things I know about how people are going to buy in the next 5-10 years. The way that B2B buyers know, and I feel confident about it, but I'm always prone to it, is two ways. They're either going to know somebody, and they're going to ask them, what product do you use? And the second thing they're going to do is they're going to do their own self-discovery. And what I've said to you is the buyer. All of these technologies are geared towards making them more successful than marketers and sellers. So when we talk about agents and we talk about Path Factory and what we've already released a series of marketing agents, we're redefining what the role of ABM is, redefining what these agents are. And we have them in market today. Our customers are actually pushing us to incorporate more of these agents to give buyers what they want, give them all the personalized content far before the seller even gets to them. Because I think that really
give me an idea of like when you say an agent here, was this like a chat
I'll give you a great
experience on the
example.
website? Like, what is it?
We have a great one that we're working with, which is on any webinar, you might ask a product question, like, I need to know more about this particular product. Our agent is embedded and it's answering those questions. There's no human. It's like, I have a very deep question. You know why? Because buyers are often smarter than the rest of us. They often know more. So that's one part. The other part is an ABM agent that we've recently launched. So, you can send an ABM website. I think that's great. I think it's very important to have personalized content. What we're sending is an actual agent that knows the business and is online 24/7 to give you offers. And this is really automating at scale. And I think that's the one thing where there's a little like elephant in the room here, which is this is all meant to make marketing FTE more efficient. Every dollar that you're seeing in reduction of marketing is moving towards AI so that you can make these more efficient. Like that's what I want to talk about, because this is really disrupting how you might think of what your demand gen motion is today, what your seller orchestration is today. It may not matter in the next couple of years if it's disrupted by what the buyer wants to do.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna have websites in the future. Search is gonna change because it's all gonna be in basically all the ChatGPT and other tools. And
I'm in a generous mood, actually.
For us individuals, so we won't need marketers and sellers. I mean, that's where it's going, right?
I think you need
okay. We're getting into the future here. Granted, it might be a future that's only like 6 months away, and yeah, all of us are redundant. I just want first to welcome my AI overlords. I think they're great. But let's talk a little bit more here on these agents, because Frank, you're giving like a really great example of one. You're seeing like this evolve. I guess this is Path Factory technology, sitting in a webinar, sitting on a website, engaging folks.
It is, but think about us as an ecosystem. Today you have a marketing ecosystem. Well, the way we're working with customers is an agent ecosystem. This is not about the ability to landlock. For example, when we are working and our agent is being asked questions about pricing, we know about that. And we say, instead of like immediately connecting you to a seller, we're saying, let's ask a couple more questions. All of this is an agent doing the work. So we're qualifying, we're doing all of this work here. And then we're bringing in other ecosystem agents. Could be Marketo, could be another agent to say, let me figure out the problem together. So one word, as we're all kind of in the depth of building these things together, the companies and the vendors that are really thinking about these as ecosystems, like play well with others, are the ones that are going to probably win.
All right, you have me an ecosystem.
That's
anyone
exactly
else?
right.
Let me tug a little bit more here on agents. Who else has had some real world use of agents currently in either your own demand gen or with a demand gen of a client? What are you using? What's working?
I haven't heard Evan speak, so I wanted to ask Evan if you.
Yeah, so I mean, and on the demand gen side, more like on the support side, again, it's to obfuscate like people, right? Being able to respond faster. So we certainly are using AI chatbot agents on our website, really around support functions, partly because it's built on a great repository of like help desk information. So that's one area. It's not directly in demand gen, but it's trying to make sure you deliver a better customer experience. And that, I think, it's a great example of how AI agent technology can be used. But I also do say, well, we want to push on the future. I do agree with John. Sometimes we're kind of in this trough of potentially disillusionment. You want to key in on small little use cases that you can build wins. And I don't want to overlook some of the wins that we already have out there. So for us, a tangible example of where we kind of see Gen AI playing a really good role is like something like a problem like title normalization. That's been a problem that's bedeviled us for a long time, right? A bunch of us are looking at like buying groups and that motion, which is a new go-to-market motion. Well, one of the key things you need is to know who is in the buying group by which of the titles. And there's so many different ways to do all these different titles around there. How many ways can you talk about a demand gen professional? Like, just imagine all those. And AI is a perfect use case to be like, all these people belong to the same thing and they kind of work at the same roles, even though we call everything different. It's a very, very small problem, right? But it's one that hasn't been solved beforehand. And using AI technology, by solving bunches of little problems, we get to unlock a whole lot bigger value without having to go for like the moonshot right off the bat, in my mind.
Evan, mind just telling folks like how you actually do that? How are you plugging in the AI to do that normalization?
Yes. Exactly. So I think it is, I think it was Helen was talking about it. It's just using ChatGPT, writing some queries saying, hey, here are a whole bunch of roles, titles that we want to do it, taking ChatGPT, organize it into these buckets. It's a very simple query out there. It doesn't take a whole lot of magic out there, but we've already seen great results looking at it from our client data and plan to roll that into some of the stuff that we're offering as well. So.
Sweet. Anyone else want to weigh in on agent experience? Yep.
All I'm going to say is that that's an emphasis point for D-Cubed at Harvard. They think agentic is going to be the word of 2025 because it's going to disrupt the GPT solution as we know it. They're going to see GPT as more as a place, to your point, Evan, where you get developed training data. But what we've been tracking is the money flowing into large action model development. We know that the rabbit was undercooked, but there's something behind that. The idea that the large action model is semi-supervised to unsupervised learning. That's to your point, Vink. And it's very disruptive to everything. We're going to probably look back at ChatGPT like using picks and shovels in just a few years. But follow the money is what I say. It is pouring into agentic investments. And most importantly, NVIDIA is about to make a huge pivot to start developing a smaller, affordable GPU just to run compute on large action models, which are much easier, much smaller models than what we're seeing with the hyperscalers.
Just in case we have folks listening in here who don't know what a large action model is, what's that difference from an LLM? What is that?
Vink is going to have more engineering background than me to crisp this up, but the large action model completes the task unsupervised versus predicts the next token, which is what large language models do. Even though it might predict an ebook, it might predict a picture. Fundamentally, all ChatGPT does is predicts the next token based on your prompt. The LAM is different. It conducts an action unsupervised, like when you use a rabbit, the car shows up at my front door. Say, go get me a car, same preferences as last time, airport, terminal C, car shows up. That's a LAM at work, and they're coming.
Give you an example
Okay.
of how I think in marketing today. Today, when you say, "Oh, I'd like to, throw a form up on a website based on a series of actions," that's an API call, right? It's an API call with a bunch of config, or you use webhooks and you use all these kind of technologies to do that. What we're talking about is a different layer. Think of this as a common parlance for agents to talk to other agents. And this is just kind of in its beginning phases. Today, we still have to use APIs. But it's really about saying an agent instructing another agent, like, hey, I've got a series of things, and you write a prompt. The agent will self-create the prompt, send it to another agent to execute. This is a different semantic layer for what we're trying to think about. But I think that's fundamentally, think of it as a new talking system, right? A new communication system between.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Ben, what are you training your agents on? What
Very
data?
good question. When you think about agent training, here's the part that I think people need to kind of look at. What we train Path Factory's content on is not on large language models. We've got a small language model. We developed a small language model that is trained on a customer's content. So if it's marketing content, you're trained on that one content. Why is this different? Because Perplexity, GPT, all of those things swab the web with content that may or not be accurate. So what we've built is the ability to even train our agent on 50 pieces of content, 100 pieces of content. So while you're hearing about large language models, I think the future is also small language models. Being smart enough to do a little bit that with just a bit of content, you can actually create an agent experience. And that involves a different type of engineering. But there you go. Scott, go ahead.
Okay,
Well,
all right. So we're
I'm
talking a
curious.
fair amount here about agents as sort of the interface between the company, and its prospects and customers. I'd love if anyone has some experience on whether they're agents or, again, just sort of more sophisticated co-pilots, on the marketer side of this, whether it was for like planning or whether it's for content creation, or particularly those of you who might be using this for more like analysis and optimization. Can you tell us a little bit about the technologies that you're using? Like what's working for you today?
Yeah, let me jump in here on this one. So, our business is probably a little bit different than some of the other businesses on here, so it might be applicable to different parts of the audience. But we have a PLG motion in front of our business that really acquires tons of free users. So we have hundreds of thousands of free users that sign up for our service every month. And we have to be able to sift through that to find the ones who have real buyer intent, who are really part of our ICP. And that is not something you can do manually. So we use more on the machine learning side than generative AI. But on the machine learning side, we use quite a bit of AI to help determine, look, there's 400,000 people that signed up this month. Who are the 100 to 200 that really have the most aptitude to potentially buy from us? And we not only train our models based on historical data, but we retrain the models every month as we learn more and more. And kind of hooking into Tim's point, that's a great advancement for us. As Evan said, like try to find the easy wins that can kind of incrementally move you forward. But ultimately, we need to get to the point within our own business where we actually take action with these models automatically, right? That's going to be the real win for us. And so while we found, I think, some of the short-term kind of incremental wins, we have a lot to do to get to the point where we can actually take action in a much more automated fashion.
So many questions that raises. Let me start with this one. So just on the level of like looking at data, being able to do this sort of analysis, optimization work, how many of you see AI as an opportunity to democratize who in the marketing department can ask questions, whether it's about campaigns or cohorts, and be able to like, do some experimentation? And then my question for you around that is, how do you make sure you're getting the right data into those models? And what about security around this? Like, how do we make sure, who gets access to all the relevant customer data, financial data, other things, that would feed these agents or co-pilots, to answer the sort of questions a marketer might have? Go.
So I would say that, I mean, it starts with having a AI SWAT team council, from all relevant functions, right? Legal needs to be involved, IT needs to be involved, marketing needs to be involved. How many companies actually do that? Well, not that many still. I think a lot of companies are struggling. What I can say about Cortelligent, for example, so Cortelligent is in the services business, right? So it serves highly regulated vertical industries, and it's a Microsoft shop. So we have Copilot, basically that we're working with, and in terms of training the Copilot and kind of enabling the tools, it starts very small, starts with basically getting the licenses, identifying very specific use cases for marketing. So, and basically isolating kind of the data sets to feed the model with to enable those specific use cases. So on the side, basically everyone is using ChatGPT. It's unregulated. You can't even control that. That's happening across the board. All you can do, I think, is basically set the guidelines and kind of train the people not to put sensitive customer data and financial data information into the model. And the best companies that are ahead of everyone else, they actually have very strict rules and a lot of training around this and around the regulations and employee training.
Out of curiosity, what are you all using as your source of truth in the data that you feed into these things? You know, is it revolving around like a common platform? Is it happening at sort of like more the cloud data warehouse, data lake layer? Like, where do you point these things at to be able to get the insights on demand generation?
Well, I can just answer from the specific marketing use cases. I mean, we start very small and very simple. So think about, you know, I need to, we just had a rebrand and website redesign. We have new PowerPoint templates that we need to make sure that AI is enabled or Copilot is enabled on using our PowerPoint template and create train all the design and functionality within PowerPoint on our template. We pointed to very specific data sets, the most current brand, tone, voice, brand guidelines, so that basically we can write in the voice and tone that basically was agreed upon. And then in terms of data analysis and marketing campaigns, that gets really, really complicated. And I cannot say that we have trained the Copilot there yet. So this is still very much work in progress.
Scott, I can tell you from customer conversations, like exactly what we're being asked for and what systems to use. First and foremost, a lot of our customers are moving very quickly and they already have AI panels. In fact, we're working with them to develop what these guidelines look like. The three things that, first of all, they care about is connecting to the ecosystem, and that includes CRM, it includes CDPs, and it also includes, for example, other marketing technology that might be in the periphery that they care about. And all, again, layer, trust, all these certifications are critical, especially data integrity, PII, SOC 2 compliance. The third one that we work with them, and we evolve these guidelines with them, is how you think about your AI. And many companies are more comfortable thinking about us as services versus apps. So all AI capabilities are not, if you design them right, and I'm looking to all your CPOs to answer this question, is you think about them as services that can plug and play with other services, not necessarily bespoke applications. This nuance is important for companies that are really thinking ahead of AI. It means they want to assemble and disassemble what your AI is capable of. And important, one last thing is, I know we've talked a lot about GPT, but we are all about building a swappable LLM architecture. This is going to be like what intent providers pioneered. Bring your own key, bring your own agent. And because the cost to compute and tokens are getting so small in this world, there are open source capabilities that can do the same thing. So fundamentally, they're looking for platform flexibility from day one of a new product.
All right, AI, ecosystems, composability. Now I know why somebody invited me to this thing. All right, I know we're supposed to stay focused here on the present day, but we've got like so many of you are like already so far ahead, in what you're thinking about here. I can't help but like tap into some of that. Sangram's running a little bit of a guerrilla, marketing thing here in the host chat of like, hey, here's where I think the future of this is going. So Sangram.
Yeah, I'll just jump in because as research, we obviously look at technologies that are thinking and doing it right now, but we are looking at what's coming in the future. So First and foremost, we're already seeing companies with 1 to 3 people building companies up to 10 million or more in revenue. That's unheard of. If that's not revolutionary, I don't know what is. Like, that changes the cap table, how investments work. Like, that's just a big change. So I wouldn't be surprised if you have a 50 people company that hits 100 million in revenue. And what you're really now talking about is hiring different ways of augmenting everything else and really focused on engineering, product, and services. The other part and I shared some of the other ones, but the one that is the biggest thing that I'm seeing is that the product pricings are dropping like a rock. Every SaaS business out there is actually struggling. That's just the reality of where the market is today, to sell at a higher price point. Every single person, every single company that sold products for $100,000 is now selling for $25,000, $30,000. Like, that's literally what's happening. Well, what changed? Well, a lot of it, less products, less people on the team, and less budget. But what has flipped on the top is the services and fractionals. We have seen the highest amount of services businesses that are making 5, 10, 15 million in revenue much faster than ever before in the marketplace. And the fractionals, because people are saying, I need to build an ABM campaign. I'm not going to hire a whole team that does that. I'm going to just get a fractional to do it. So these are all big changes that are happening within the go-to-market space, and AI has a big role to play in all of it. So those are just a few that I'm seeing from a future perspective.
So is the main advice even here today then is for folks who are working in demand gen, like rethinking their process of how they get things done, and should they be looking for more of these like 3-person companies, who can do amazing work for them at a fraction of the price before, with apologies to anyone else in the services ecosystem who's listening to this.
I think it's actually about thinking about your own team and thinking about what is the right cost structure for your own existing team to get, item A done. Is it people? Is it services? And what's the right mix of those two things? Because the highest leverage points are clearly on technology over people, right? And so I think that's where a lot of the formative thought has to go into, is like the traditional way you thought about your marketing team or your go-to-market team at large, SDRs, marketing team, kind of everyone soup to nuts. Like, what is the right structure for that team? It's going to look very different moving forward. And I think we're just kind of scratching the surface on exactly what that team makeup needs to look like with all these new services coming online right now.
Yeah, I'll give you like
it's almost
30 seconds. Go ahead.
Jump in real quick. I think it's almost easier for younger new startups to thrive in this new world than for mid-sized and larger organizations to move forward and adopt that. Because not only because they're larger, there's bureaucracy, there the layers of complexity, etc. But it's hard to really break out of existing processes and tools and lots of tools and systems that all their operations are built on are so archaic, and they don't innovate as fast as possible. So I very much agree with Sangram that we are going to see a lot of younger startups that basically reimagine the entire process, and they build it from scratch with the point solutions and tools that are going to generate tons of impact.
I'd love to
I'll jump to
points if I may.
Yeah.
So, I think two thoughts I had is, first, a lot of the discussion so far, Sangram's point about the $10 million company with 3 people, I think a lot of that is really focused on how AI is going to help improve efficiency, kind of by making people's work more efficient. I've actually been thinking even more about how can we make our marketing more effective? And a big part of that comes down to, I think that, what we've all wanted from AI for the last 30 years since Don Peppers and Martha Rogers wrote The One-to-One Future, which is how can we actually do the right thing at the right time for each person? And then to Anastasia's point, I've been talking to companies about that problem. Like, wouldn't it be cool if the AI could say, hey, we've got Scott here. What should we do with Scott? Look at all the campaigns and all the offers that we could possibly present him, and let's pick the one that's most likely going to achieve our goals. People think that sounds really, really cool. And then to Anastasia's point about bigger companies having a harder time kind of evolving, it immediately, the discussion goes into, well, yeah, but this product manager over in this group has a product launch on Tuesday. and they need to make sure their campaign goes out to the right people. And this field marketer has a dinner next Wednesday, and there's only 7 people registered, and there's 20 seats, and they're going to be pissed if the AI doesn't fill up their dinner. And this and this and this. So, yeah, we all want this holy grail of effectiveness, but those bigger companies are going to have a really hard time fully embracing what AI can do if they can't kind of get out of their way around their existing processes.
By the way,
I agree
AI
with John.
actually weighed in here. It analyzed this group and it determined actually this panel is too small to thoroughly cover this topic. So it has helped us add in Mark as our mystery guest panelist. Mark, you had something you wanted to weigh in on? Right, you're on mute. Mark, you're on mute. You're on mute. There'll be an AI that does this. All right.
I mean, if we can create an AI machine that can unmute and mute people, that'd be phenomenal.
There you are. All right.
That's correct. So, it's fun to be here, but I didn't get a chance to put my pretty face on. So you got me with a baseball cap on backward right now. I wanted to agree with John wholeheartedly. I think from the people that I'm working with, there's too much focus put onto efficiency and not effectiveness with AI.
Yeah.
The first and foremost thing that you need to define is what can we do more effectively using AI? My organization and a lot of, obviously a lot of people we talk to are talking about content. But I think, John, you've jumped over way too far. I think right now we struggle with doing even basic content relatively well. So people talk about ABM personalized content. Oh, holy cow, you need that. Like before you get to the one-on-one, you should be able to write content that is very multi-dimensional, looking at the persona, the industry, ICP, whatever, the stage of engagement, the needs that they're focused on. AI can do that today. But to a point that was made a little bit earlier is that AI, for all the hundreds of billions of data points it connected, is really awful at decomposing its ideas and then reassembling them to reflect anything like what your business looks like, what that person's trying to accomplish, that their needs set, like it's awful at doing that. So to a point that Scott made a moment ago about, well, what do you point to? That's the key. Context. Context is the key for B2B sales and marketing. If you don't have a corpus of data that is directly reflective of your personas, your core messages, your value propositions, your capabilities and features, and how they align to the needs of the different personas, if you don't have that, it's all just piston in the wind. You're not going to get there.
I'd like to support a bigger point of like John Miller's statement, not just of, hey, how AI makes things more effective. I mean, one of the biggest things that holds back organizations was a little bit of a use case of all the different incentives of all the different people at these bigger companies. I think they don't focus on this, they focus on what's best for them, not necessarily what's best for the end customer. So I think with AI, the democratization of the fact that we can just focus on the customer without the politics internally can deliver a much better buying process, because the AI agents won't have their own incentives that are misaligned around that. For example, your classics, the sales rep is like, I'm not going to sell them that because I don't get comped on that, right? Something like services and something that can go away, and so that we can ultimately focus on the best customer experience. And I think that will provide a huge.
All right, hang on. So let me, I'm going to guide this back one way or another. One of the questions that often comes up when people are like weighing, how to deploy AI is, where do we keep human in the loop? And where do we let this thing just have, direct engagements with customers, whether it's sending emails or answering questions, and how can I trust it? I mean, maybe picking up where you were there, Evan, like, how can people trust that the agent's going to do a good job?
I think it's got to be baby steps around it. I think it's a similar problem to, I think, what we're seeing in the self-driving world, right? It's actually the combination of having people and AI is a little bit more challenging. I think in the self-driving world, if every car was autonomous and there were no human drivers, it's actually a simpler problem to solve. So that's why I think Sangram was saying that, hey, look, I could start from fresh scratch, but I have no people involved. It's actually easier. I think once you have human beings involved, either passengers or other drivers, I think then you have to be careful around. So it will be a transition for everyone because you do have to slowly understand where the human playing, and you have to stroke their egos a little bit. But that's where you're the newer companies, in some respects, if you don't have to take care of that, you might be able to go faster.
You
Well,
know,
I think
I'm doing work with agentic systems now, and I still would not, with expert or custom trained small language models or RAGs, whatever you would like to call it, I would still never ever suggest that you have it go without a human touch on it, ever. I think we've been able to get
Semi-supervised. It's still semi-supervised, is what you're saying.
exactly. I would say we get to 90%. I think there's some tools that can get you, like if you do it longhand, just by yourself, you're 0% better. If you use ChatGPT or another chatbot, maybe you're 15% better because it can help you ideate, maybe put together an outline. You use writing tools that are available. They still lack context, but maybe they have enough context where you can upload a document or two and revision the content a little bit. That's maybe 30% better. But I think we're talking right now about what is available today. I mean, there's lots of stuff we could look at for the future. I mean, heck, apply quantum computing to this and it just like all goes through the window. But like what we have today, I would never suggest that a marketing team that you have a policy for them using ChatGPT. It's not private. You like lack complete context. You know, any larger organization should at least be working with an enterprise tool where they are in a privacy compliant area. You know, so there's so much of the discussion is about what could be done around the corner, but there's so much that can be done now that I think a lot of the debate is missing.
Definitely. Sorry if I can add just real quick, you know, especially when you're looking at industries where, you know, the client is, or the client information or customer information is so critical, there is absolutely no way that we would ever allow this to kind of self-function just yet. Never say never, right? But just like you would with any other process in a marketing organization, right? You need to set the tone from the top, the guidelines, the process, like it follows the same workflows that we already have, and we're augmenting it versus completely letting it run on its own. Because for us, right, like our trust with our customers is paramount, and the trade-off of running a more effective, you know, organization or a function would never overtake that, just, or at least not yet.
So Hank, I'm hoping you might jump in on this, right? Because when you have these like chatbots, you know, agents that are engaging, right, that is unsupervised.
Well, I think you have to allow the buyer to have a human option, because trust is paramount. And if they get engaged with a bot, particularly if they don't know for sure if it's a bot or not, which is horrible, you got to disclose that, and they've got to have an option to go to a human. Otherwise, I think you're eroding trust.
You are. You know, I mean, I think what everybody's bringing up is the bigger point, like, what's your tolerance for mistakes? That's why we don't have self-driving cars that are fully autonomous, because if it kills one person and it gets out, we still don't believe in it being autonomous. Every marketing leader needs to figure out, to this point, what's your tolerance for error? Some people are going to say, like, I have zero tolerance, and agents aren't going to be ready for a minute for them unsupervised. Others are like, oh no, I'm speed to market, I'll make mistakes, I'm not trying to build a brand, I'm trying to get acqui-hired. It's a really fundamental decision you need to have with your team around what's your appetite for hallucinations.
I see. In fact, you just have counterpoints here. You're like dying to come in with.
It's one thing that's actually not technology. I know I'm the product guy and I'm here. I'm doing something that's not technology, but there's a fundamental, and John's been saying this. There's a bunch of this, but there's a big cultural change that I've seen at the best partners of ours, our best customers, and it's the marketers. And I'm gonna take something from Molly Graham here, but it's the marketers that are willing to give away their Legos. And that's a fundamental, very big change in marketing. It means that when I work with Adobe, they're willing to cede brand control and say, we'll give you brand consistency, but let your folks remix. This is a very different model. Marketing, the equation is, I know enough about you, I'm going to give you the best message possible. That's just not, mathematically possible anyway with human behavior. And now we're saying, Let you develop the playground, let the buyers do what they need to do. Remix. Very different approach. Give away your Legos.
I mean, the answer ultimately is there's the spectrum, right? For certain tasks, you're going to allow full automation. For other tasks, especially ones that involve a lot of PII or even more sensitive data than that, you're never going to let it run by itself. And so the organization is going to have to have a culture around how they think about things, and then make bespoke decisions for each kind of each item on where it lands within their spectrum that they want to be on. And there's no kind of one size fits all strategy for this across any organization, I think.
To make an emphasis on a point, in moving from the machine to the person, the typical really smart person can assemble 2 to 3 ideas simultaneously when making a decision. So if you're looking at content creation, you can look at the persona and the industry and a need, maybe. But you can't align everything that's necessary, buyer's journey stage and region, language, like whatever else might be involved in that decision. And that's why a lot of the content that we have today is very inside out focused, because you can grok 2 or 3 things at once. So it becomes, okay, we have a new product, I have this feature, and this is our audience. And so AI is really good at assembling stuff. It's really bad at decomposing things, but it's really good at assembling ideas on hundreds of dimensions simultaneously. But regardless, I would still never let it run, at least in today's environment, unaided.
Benk, any other thoughts there on like guardrails, or for that matter, anyone else? If we do want to deploy this stuff, how do we make sure we have good guardrails for it?
2 things on guardrails. And first, I'll begin with, again, the non-technology. It involves that your customers have a values-based organization, because there's no legislation that you can back into here. You're going further than what the legislation is out there. And so if you decide to wait for that legislation, that's not the right way. You have to do right by your customers and trust, guidance, and everything else. It's up to you to do your own QA and not let your customers find it. It's up to you as all practitioners and owners of technology. And the second thing on guardrails is, I think fundamentally, everyone's been talking about data and privacy. I think these are all the right conversations to have. You cannot go wrong thinking about a lot of this stuff. And the guardrails have to be more than just LLMs. You have to be able to configure, tune, think of all these outside circumstances, and more importantly, even your UX. Never forget how it looks and how it feels is an important part. Letting your buyers and users know exactly what you can use this for is so critical to build trust between those interactive components.
Whew. All right, we have covered a whole bunch of ground here. I'd love someone who, didn't get a chance to speak as much on this. Give us a closing reflection on state of demand gen AI today and what you reasonably expect in this next 6 months ahead.
That's every second lost, guys. So
I know, Helen, you kicked us off. How about I would love you to help close us out.
I'll give you like 10 seconds on this. I think going around the horn on this one, I believe that 90% of our old go-to-market playbooks like SEO, pay-per-click, big events, emails only, generic webinars, SDR play, all of them are going to die. So the question is, if they're not dying already, what are we doing? And the classic definition of insanity is at play here. If you're doing the same things over and over again, and we're not getting different results, are we insane or are we going to change? And that's really what's at stake right now.
All right.
So tips, to answer your question, I think we're going to knit together the best of what's out there. So taking the data providers to update CRM automatically, making sure that sales and marketing are working in concert to drive the right things. And, using AI tools smartly, because there's so much data. Let's make sure that we're using AI to bring together to get a map of what's actually going on. And then AI is not good for everything. Use Power BI, use other analytics tools as needed, but drive towards pragmatic results and circle back and double down on what's working, because I think there's so many things thrown against the wall, but let's look at where we're having success and what's driving impact, because we're all paid on driving revenue and growth. And so let's make sure we're actually doing that.
Well said. All right, I think we can close it out on that. Thank you all for your contributions. Also, your incredible patience with me. I've never actually moderated anything close to this size of a panel. I hope I never do it again either. Apologies to you now.
You did a great job.
Fantastic. But this is clearly just so much more conversation we could all have. But I believe, Julia, we actually more conversation is right around the corner.
Thank you for the amazing panel, Scott. I guess the last question, if you could build any AI bespoke tech for you, what would it be and why?
You know, we didn't get much chance to like dig on this, but I really do feel there's something that came around in the chat or something like this. Maybe this is from you, Sangram. This thing about the focus on experimentation. At the end of the day, you know, this has always been where great marketing springs from, you know, is ideas and experiments, and most of them don't work. And what digital has always done is it's accelerated the rate at which we can try and run more experiments. And it feels like AI is going to 10x that, 100x that, you know. So I think more and more technology that helps frame this, you know, as experimentation and sort of bring a little bit of structure, you know, to that chaos of generation, I think is going to, have a tremendous future ahead.
Amazing. And the last question, what's the best way to support you?
By all means, you know, keep this conversation going. So you've got everyone's name and beautiful face here on this slide. Please reach out to folks here, engage conversation. We are all very much in the process of learning this, you know, together. And so, your feedback, your experience is incredibly helpful moving forward.
Thank you so much.